Hello, and welcome back to the Sincerely Yours podcast. I am your host, Ivy. In today's episode, we'll discuss something that hugely impacted my childhood, which is the Pokemon franchise. I recently received a phone call from my friend Ash Ketchum, the main protagonist of the Pokemon series for about maybe roughly maybe 25 or so years. But he hit my line. Even though he's in his early stages of his retirement, he still thought about you guys and gave me a phone call and told me that it's time for me to pick up that mantle and I gotta catch them all. And I had told Ash, say less, I got him. I would cover for him since these new protagonists, I don't know their names, but I know they're new protagonists that are taking up the mantle, even though Ash did not pass the torch to them officially. But we're going to get into some things in today's episode. Before we dive in, I want to clarify that one of the things that I'll talk about in Pokemon in this episode, I am not a Pokemon expert. So don't expect too much out of me. I'm just talking about my experience from playing the games and watching a few episodes in or series that I have watched on Cartoon Network. And I would like to mention these Pokemon YouTube experts. I claim that they are YouTube experts. But anywho, I like to mention Much and Orange. I don't know how to pronounce this YouTuber name, so bear with me.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
No, I'll put his name in there. I spell it out on edits. MJTV or Birdkeeper Toby. But these are the YouTube content creators that make Pokemon content that I love, and I will always get my information when it comes to Pokemon on. But anywho, let's roll that intro and get started with today's episode. If you recognize this theme song,
I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was.
and you have this expression on your face when you hear it, I want to say I'm afraid you have missed out on a significant part of your childhood, and I don't see why you are here, let alone still here after a couple channel, let alone this episode. But if you're here strictly for the vibes, thank you. Welcome to the podcast. You can take your seat somewhere in the middle or in the back, but thank you for joining. But to the little backstory about Pokemon, very first Pokemon game was released on February 20th, 1996, and made its North American debut on September 28th, 1998. Over the past 28 years, Pokemon has evolved into a well-known franchise encompassing countless TV series, movies, manga, trading cards, and games ranging from mobile hits like Pokemon Go to handheld console games such as the recently released Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Now that you have some background, let's dive into why I love Pokemon. When I was younger, Pokemon aired on Cartoon Network in a 30-minute time slot. I don't recall it being an hour having, well, the Pokemon shows having an hour long time slot. But if you remember something differently, please comment that down below. I will watch the episodes which inspired me to ask for the trading cards from my mom. Even though I did not fully understand how to use them, I still don't understand how to use them now, but I still got them somewhere in my room. I remember because I saw it like not too long ago, maybe like a couple of days ago. But anywho, at the time, a few kids in my area were into Pokemon cards. If you know how to use Pokemon trading card game and know the ins and outs of it, please share your knowledge in the chat. One of my greatest achievements while collecting trading cards was when my mom took me to Burger King and I got the legendary Giratina card. A side note, this was a time where Pokemon and Burger King had made a meal for the kids, where the parent would order a kids meal, and as a toy you get a Pokemon trading card. And I was hoping that I get a legendary Giratina card, even though I didn't know anything about that Pokemon at all. All I just know it looked cool and it's legendary, and I want it, and I got it. Still to this day. But on a side note, speaking of Giratina, I wanted to give you a mini story time of the time where the movie came out, which was the Pokemon Giratina and the Sky Warriors. That came out when I was 9 years old, and that's when Cartoon Network and literally every other kids show, if they wanted to premiere a movie, they would premiere it on Friday, probably around 6 or 7, and that's probably the time where it came out. But anywho, I was 9 years old and I was sick bad. I had pneumonia, and I could have sworn I threw up that day before I went down my grandma's house. But I was sick with pneumonia badly. And my grandma thought it would be a good idea for me to go to the store and walk around with her, even though I had pneumonia. And even though I told my grandma I did not want to go to the store because I'm trying to watch all the Pokemon episodes that they had premiered on Cartoon Network back to back like a marathon, my grandma told me to be quiet and go get in the car, which was, now that I think about it, it's not like a safety hazard for like, other people, since I had very bad pneumonia and I was walking around coughing, sneezing, sniffling. Now that I think about it, that was a bad idea for my grandma to do that. But she, even though she did not want to leave me alone in the house. Let me clarify that. Even though I told her I'd be okay, since nothing really happens at my grandma's house like that, anyways. But she thought it was a good idea. But back to the story. At the time, I was unaware that Pokemon had expanded beyond the TV shows into gaming. They partnered with Game Freak to develop the games. The first Pokemon game I owned was Soul Silver, but I never finished it. Because I never finished it because it was hard for me to play the game. Even though it was easy, I did not understand outside of water, fire overpowers grass and grass overpower water. I did not understand the type advantages and type disadvantages, so it took me a long time to figure that part out. Would I play it again? Yes, I still got the game. I need to replay it and start over and felt that nostalgic feeling of when I played the game. But after that, I did not look for Pokemon games until I played Pokemon Black and White. And I gotta say, that was my, I guess, besides Pokemon X, that was my Black and White, I should say. Let me clarify that. Black and White was my most favorite game to play. I think because of the simple fact, I feel like they had a better storyline, and I dig the main antagonist of the Unova Elite region, which I forgot their name. I think it was like Team Plasma, I think. I hope I got that right. But if I don't, oh well. Anyways, speaking of Pokemon games, let's move on to my review of the latest Pokemon game release, which was Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So, to give you a heads up, when I mention Pokemon Scarlet and Violet from this point, since it's like a mouthful and I don't want to say Pokemon Scarlet and Violet throughout the whole episode, I will refer to it as S and V. But since I say Pokemon Scarlet and Violet pretty much a lot in the game, let's make it into a little mini game. I say if you're over 21 and you can drink, let me say this again we all understand we're on the same page. If you're old enough to drink and you're over the age of 21 and you can drink, please participate. If you cannot drink or you are of legal age to drink and you just choose not to, please get you some water or juice to sip on. But if you can drink and you got some on you and you want to get rid of it, we're going to play a game. So every time I say Pokemon Scarlet or Violet, or in this case S and V, you will take a shot. In the edits, I probably put a drink up every time I say it. It's gonna be a drag editing it, listening to me say S and V or Pokemon Scarlet and Violet a lot and pull up a drink sticker or whatever. But we're just gonna have fun with this because this is a fun channel. So I have to say that I enjoy playing Scarlet and Violet or S and V. I find it to be a lot of fun and I love the graphics. While some YouTubers and game reviewers point out the issues of the game's launch, I didn't experience too many problems. The only glitches I met with was the occasional grass or building popping up unsuspectedly on the screen, or the Pokemon Taurus. I hope I pronounced that Pokemon name right. But every time Taurus will randomly pull up on patches of grass that I was in, or oh, well, not patches of grass, in the area that I was in, a horde of them. Or the most famous one, I hope I can find the video for it. But when I'm at the Pokemon Center, where I'm trying to either heal up my Pokemon or buy potions and things of that sort from the Pokemon Center, the tours will randomly run up to the Pokemon Center and vanish, and it will be like a endless cycle of it running towards me or a random object within the Pokemon Center, which I find kind of hilarious. But other than that, I think the Pokemon Company did a fantastic job creating another open world game. Pokemon Legends of Arceus showed players how engaging the open world concept could be in the hands of the Pokemon Company, and it was well received. The main storylines of SMB were quite overall good. However, the Teal Disc storyline was the weakest and most pointless part of the DLC. This Teal Disc is a part of a two-part DLC package that the Pokemon Company had released. It didn't clarify what happened to Nimona, Penny, Arvin, or my not or and my character after their adventures in Area Zero. Let's chat about what SMV had accomplished for me. I want to give a round of applause for SMV for making the game longer. I always wish for a leading Pokemon franchise game to have a more playtime, as I often finish the game in 2 or 3 days. The last generation Pokemon game, which was Sword and Shield, cost $59.99 plus tax. Adding the other game version would have brought the total to $119.98 plus tax, which seems excessive for a game I can complete so quickly. In contrast, S&B features different storylines, including not Lamona's game, Lamona's champion story, Arvin's Titan story, and Penny's Starfall story. So, a little backstory on each storyline that I mentioned. Nemona's champion story is where you just battle gym leaders. You can say like the typical Pokemon game route, where you just battle gym leaders and go to make your way up to the Pokemon League to become champion. Arvin's Titan story is where you help Arvin with his Pokemon. I hope I pronounced the Pokemon's name right. Mastiff or along those lines. Heal him up to get him back to health, with also in turn help you heal up your legendary Pokemon based off of the game version you buy, which is the Miraidon or Koraidon. And Penny's Starfall storyline is basically you go around Paldea in different areas to defeat the Starfall leaders, so they can go back to school, basically. Other than that, I appreciate that the game offers these multiple main storylines rather than sticking to just one linear path of battling through Pokemon gyms, defeating the antagonist group, and collecting legendary Pokemon. Another feature I love is the ability to repeatedly send my Pokemon into battle until their health is low, allowing them to gain experience. This saves much time compared to battling random Pokemon to level up adequately for the next gym leader, Nemona, or other NPC trainers, like the antagonist group that we will face in different Pokemon games. I also enjoy the convenience of using the legendary Pokemon to fly, even though it feels underwhelming. I noticed that Miraidon or Koraidon were shown flying long distances in the opening scene, yet in their actual flying capabilities in the game are more limited. Miraidon and Koraidon can also swim, jump high levels, and running throughout the game, which is just I say convenient because usually in old Pokemon games you would have to find the right Pokemon that can do that certain thing. Like I mentioned, like swimming, which would be like a TM for using surf or like to jump. Well, you don't really have a TM for that, or you ride on the Pokemon's backs, but it saves a lot of time into finding a Pokemon that could do that. But now let's discuss where SMB fell short in the game. One thing I wish SMB had done is for the Pokemon game and Game Freak to expand on the past and future Pokemon concepts. Instead of the Terastallized feature where Pokemon wear a crystallized headband, it would have been an excellent idea for Pokemon to transform into historical or futuristic forms depending on the game version you purchase. Basically, to sum it up, if you purchase Pokemon Scarlet, then you would deal with a storyline based off the past and you would have Koraidon. But if you have Pokemon Scarlet, you would have Miraidon and you would deal with the concepts of futuristic Pokemon. But back to the story. This approach would have aligned perfectly with the game's narrative, particularly in Arven's Titan storyline, which references past and future Pokemon depending on, again, the game you purchase. Another area for improvement is the introduction of new power ups in next gen Pokemon games. I felt that the Teal Disc DLC was pointless as it didn't provide clarity on terastallization, and I didn't learn anything from the Indigo Disc either, primarily due to the frustrating challenges posed by Drayton. Oh, he was a butthole. I did not like his trial. But if anyone discovers an explanation for terastallization in the Indigo Disc, please share in the comments. Game Freak and the Pokemon Company have a pattern of introducing new transformations in their new generation games without providing much detail in subsequent titles. For instance, in 2014, they introduced Mega Evolutions, which captured the attention of the Pokemon community, especially with Mega Charizard X and Mega Lucario, as they are my favorite Mega Evolutions transformations. That I just loved it to pieces, especially Mega Lucario. Very neat transformation. But then in Sun and Moon, they introduced Z Moons, which I found to be cringy and uninspiring. You'd notice when I pull it up on the screen. Then they added Sword and Shield then Sword and Shield brought us Dynamaxing, which we haven't heard about since its release. And reflecting on this, the Pokemon Company and Game Freak should have introduced Mega Evolutions and used the Sun and Moon to delve deeper into the Mega Evolution concept. They could have included stones inscribed with ancient Pokemon text that is difficult to read, which Professor Kukui, the Pokemon professor in Sun and Moon, could translate as much as possible. Following that, Sword and Shield could have included the Mega Evolution storyline, and finally, Scarlet and Violet could have tied everything together with the explanation of terastallization, or use it as a, I guess you can say, turning point to introduce terastallization. With Pokemon ZA on the horizon, revisiting Mega Evolution is pointless unless it is tied to terastallization. I hope they explain in Mega Evolutions in great detail this time, as there has been plenty of time to develop something exciting for fans. Only the Pokemon that received Mega Evolutions in 2014 should be eligible for them in Pokemon ZA, or half could receive evolutions as a starting point for future changes. In part two of this episode, which is kind of last minute since I made the script, in part two of this episode, I will share my ideas about what the Pokemon Company could have done in Pokemon S and V. But for now, let's discuss what I hope to see in the upcoming Pokemon ZA, which will be released in the following year. From the trailer of Pokemon ZA, we learned that the game will explore the creation of Lumio City. Unlike Pokemon Legends of Arceus, which is set in the past, ZA will be closely tied to the timeline of Lumio City we know and love from Pokemon X and Y. In Pokemon ZA, I want voice acting to be used in the game. I'm not willing to pay $59.99 plus tax for a new game that lacks this feature. Allegedly, Pokemon ZA will be released on the latest Nintendo Switch console, Nintendo Switch 2, which is expected to come out around March of next year. I am desperate for voice acting and wish for more than just the Pokemon saying their names or making iconic sounds when they enter battle. I also want the main characters, supporting characters, and NPCs to have spoken storylines. Voice acting will enhance the game's immersion and could significantly change the Pokemon community. Other gaming studios include voice acting in their games and often charge extra for editions that feature exclusive skins, weapons, and additional content. The Pokemon Company should also be able to add voice acting without drastically changing the game, especially since they have recently added downloadable content or DLC into their roster. Another aspect I hope to see in the latest game is an explanation on how fairy type Pokemon were discovered. I believe that Sylveon or AZ's Floette could be the first Pokemon to introduce fairy types in Pokemon ZA, but we all know that AZ's Floette is basically the reason why, I think, if I could remember, the 300-year war happened in Pokemon X and Y and Kalos. So I feel like AZ's Floret will be the main fairy type Pokemon that will be introduced. Additionally, I hope there will be a better explanation for Mega Evolutions beyond the use of evolution stones, precisely why certain Pokemon can transform. Now that I think about it, do you believe that Mega Evolution connects to the concept of Terastallization in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet? Considering that these games explore themes of prehistoric and futuristic, many Pokemon with Mega Evolutions appear to have transformations that reflect these eras. For example, could it be that Mega Lucario stands for a transformation from its past? Before I get to the next part, the reason why I use Mega Lucario as an example is because if you look at Mega Lucario's like transformation, it kind of resembles or it has the appearance of it being prehistoric, which is featured in Pokemon Scarlet of the storyline of dealing with the past, going back to the past and learning from the past. I say past a lot in that sentence. I think about 3 times. But I feel like Mega Lucario, if they wanted to tie in terrestrialization, they could have used Mega Evolutions. But lastly, let's discuss the future of the Pokemon gaming franchise and what that could mean for next generation Pokemon games. Thanks to PalWorld, which shares similarities with the Pokemon franchise, such as the designs, colors, and names of its characters that resemble beloved Pokemon from both old and new generations, there has been a significant buzz in the Pokemon community and even within the Pokemon company itself. A few months ago, I did not expect PalWorld to gain the popularity it has. Still, great reviews and player feedback suggest it might be better than the previously released Pokemon games. The game's popularity has grown so top YouTubers and streamers like RDC Gaming, AMP, and Easy Game have spent hours playing it. 10 months ago and even now, I struggle to understand the excitement surrounding PalWorld. I found it boring while watching those creators mentioned above play, especially since I was also on my phone during the streams. I tried to give it a chance and look up what PalWorld is about on YouTube, but it did not capture my interest. To me, it lacked a storyline that could engage players, including myself. I compared it to a blend of Pokemon and Minecraft. It felt like a game where you could invade other territories and claim their land while using Pokemon or pals, as they call it in the game, to fight and build weapons, structures for shelter and sustenance. And also, since I mentioned that you can take other people's territory, it sounds like that what's that mobile game where you can do the same thing. It had Jennifer Lopez, like a commercial. They had a commercial with Jennifer Lopez and she was at the store and she was upset that a cashier took or claimed her land or territory or whatever. It's that game. But despite my opinions on Power World, many players have a unique perspective. Those who have played PalWorld and Pokemon assert that PalWorld offers a better gaming experience. But despite my opinions on PalWorld, many players have a unique perspective. Those who have played PalWorld and Pokemon assert that PalWorld offers a better gaming experience. Um, this sentiment suggests that the Pokemon Company should learn from PalWorld as they plan future game releases. If Power has not shaken up the Pokemon Company, I believe we would have already seen the release of Pokemon ZA by now. But since Pokemon ZA comes out next year, I hope that the success of Power World inspires the Pokemon Company to create a better Pokemon ZA game and improve their mainline Pokemon titles and their spin off games moving forward. This is all for episode 2, well, part 1 of Sincerely Yours. Thank you, everyone, for joining me in starting my podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope to see you in part 2 of this video, as the next episode will be a real treat. Comment on today's episode if you agree or disagree with what I had to say. So I will see you in the following video. Sincerely yours.